Hello, and welcome to the Shelly Show. I'm Shalendra, and you're watching this simulcast live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I hope you're safe and observing the protocols in your area so we keep each other safe and healthy and secure. So please follow the protocols. COVID is doing its bit. We need to do our bit. Okay, if you've joined us now live, then please press the thumbs up button and also tell us which part of the world are you watching us from, which country, which city, or which suburb. Just put that in there. I want to know what is our reach, where are we all going in, which all people are watching us. Okay, let's start with some giveaway. So today, let's start with the giveaway of the Link Plus AI app. So the app which is invite only, which uses LinkedIn and helps you improve your LinkedIn profile. So very quickly, let me give you access to that. All you need to do is scan the camera, and on that QR code, it will take you to your App Store or Play Store, wherever you are on, and just join in. And this will help you to optimize your LinkedIn profile and also gives you how you project to the world using LinkedIn profile. This is how you use AI to improve your lives. This is what I'm trying to do. So please scan the code and join the revolution there. Okay, coming back to where we are. For you to watch this episode and other sessions that are on emerging technologies live, I would request you to follow me so you can be alerted when a live session is on. This gives you an opportunity to ask questions directly to our guests. So please press the follow button if you're watching this on LinkedIn. Press the LinkedIn and Twitter, of course. Press the subscribe button and the bell icon if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're watching this on Facebook, then do two things. Press the like button first and then share this episode with groups which are emerging technologies related, so more and more people can learn from a guest. Today's guest, let's quickly jump on. Our today's guest is Chirag Joshi. Now, the reason for getting him there was because I was thinking about cybersecurity, and there is a lot of talk about cybersecurity. And something that finally came to my mind was this. Um, so this was the difference which I saw. It was floating around on the internet today. The difference between a secured website and an unsecured website. So this is HTTP and this is HTTPS. So that's the difference. So let's talk about this as well, on cybersecurity side of things. Hopefully that gave you a bit of idea what we're going to talk about today. So Chirag Joshi has extensive experience building and managing cybersecurity, risk management, and compliance programs in multiple countries across various industries. He is the author of the best-selling book Seven Rules to Influence Behavior and Win at Cybersecurity Awareness, which has been purchased in several countries around the world. Chirag is passionate about creating a safe world online for commerce, communication, and entertainment. His vision has led him to become a sought after speaker for a wide range of topics, including cyber threat landscape, emerging technologies, cloud computing, and security awareness. He has presented at numerous leading conferences and forums, and today we have the opportunity to have none other than Chirag Joshi. So, drum rolls for him, and we get Chirag. Hi, Chirag. Welcome to the Shelly Show. How are you doing today? You're on mute, it seems.
Hello. I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me here, Shalendra, and a big hello to all the viewers and the folks who will actually watch this on demand later.
Good
Delighted
stuff.
to be here.
Thank you, Chirag. Thank you for coming on the show. Very quickly, guys, if you've got any questions for Chirag as you come in, put that in the comment section and I'll take those questions. Anyways, Chirag, please introduce yourself to the audience. I did a very bad job in introducing you, but we want to hear from the horse's mouth actually who you are, what you do. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, no, look, I actually enjoyed the introduction then, and the image before that gave me a bit of a chuckle to the HTTPS one. So that was a good humor to start to it. Look, in terms of you covered some parts of my career profile there in the introduction, but in terms of what I currently lead cybersecurity for a major financial services conglomerate in Australia. I am also a board member of the ISACA Sydney chapter. ISACA is an international association for audit, security, and risk professionals. So that's part of my role. But if I think about my background, I started my career in the States, where I'm originally from India, but I started my career in the States, where I went to initially do my master's. I'm an engineer by education, got my master's in telecommunications management. But I started out in more technical roles in the US, and then progressively moved in cybersecurity from technical to management roles, and currently in the leadership role that I am in. So I've seen kind of the whole journey of it. When I think about cybersecurity, and really something which you talked about in my introduction, the one thing I always think about is enabling human progress through trusting technology. I think that is the key bit, and that's what I like to focus on. Is the world we live in, and just Shailendra, you and I are both Sydney based, so we are currently in a bit of a lockdown here, and just despite that, us being able to have this conversation, us being able to run businesses, entertain ourselves, uh, connected with families and friends, at least virtually, all this has been made possible by technology. And the role of cybersecurity essentially is enabling that trust. We should be able to trust that this technology is working for us. So that's been the passion that has always driven me, and continues to drive me when it comes to cybersecurity. Now, even within cybersecurity, the one thing I've always focused on, and that actually led me to write the book on this topic, was the human factor. People forget technology is for humans by humans, and so is cybersecurity. And the importance of human factor in cybersecurity is immense. If you think about the incidents that happen in this world related to cyber, have human factor at its heart for the most part, and I mean overwhelmingly, northwards of 80%. So, how we talk to humans about cybersecurity matters, how we influence behaviors and get people to make it real in their own lives, and embed good behaviors in their day to day cyber practices, not just in a corporate construct, but also in their own personal lives. Because ultimately, a lot of us rely on technology, like I said, and all of us, despite our official job titles, are chief information security officers of our own homes. So, safety and security of ourselves, our families, our kids online relies on us being aware of these things. So I think that's what my idea behind writing the book was, making it simple, accessible, at the same time giving some real tools and practical advice to people on how they can embark upon secure cyber journeys within the organizations. So that was the book angle to it. But look, in terms of other things about myself, I always like to think of myself as a business oriented cyber professional.
Mhm.
So while technical knowledge is important and cyber can be technical at times, I think the key thing we need to understand is the function exists primarily to enable businesses.
Mhm.
So the analogy which I have heard and used in the past also is, when we think about brakes on cars, we think that they slow cars down. But essentially, brakes allow cars to go faster because you have a sense of control. You can manage that risk. If it weren't for brakes, would you really be able to go that fast? And same for
No.
cyber.
Yeah,
It allows that enabling function. So anyway, that's a bit about me beyond what we mentioned in the bio.
good stuff. Thank you very much. Tell me one very exciting and rewarding part of what you do. Something that is very exciting, which is because I've heard and I've learned from people that cybersecurity is very boring. So, what is exciting about it?
Yeah, look, I think the exciting bit is actually when you make it real to the people, and when
Mhm.
you help them secure their finances,
Mhm.
secure their personal information, and give them more confidence that when they transact online, be it in a consumer capacity or run a business, that they're able to do this securely. I think that's exciting in its own right. Is you're playing a small role in enabling digital transformation across the board, and that's how the world is going, right? I mean, that is what is allowing these efficiencies. So that's always exciting to me when I have a conversation with somebody about cyber. And I recently was on a podcast, and the conversation came up was, cyber looks like an audit function. It's more of a negative function. It's like a policeman of sorts. And when you actually have the conversation and you're like, you know what, cyber allows, and having good cyber practices allows you to accept credit cards and do that safely, gives your customers the confidence that they can transact with you, and you run a business which is now successful, and your customers feel happy because they're secure and they're dealing with somebody trustworthy on the other side. That in itself is a major change, right? So able to move past the mindset of it being a technical problem for IT people somewhere in the back to actually bringing it front and center, that is something which is always exciting to me, and it's an ongoing conversation. and different age groups respond differently. So digital natives, the people who grew up with technology, will take it differently than people who are, say, in their 60s and 70s, who took this on later and adopted later, and they have some inherent suspicion of some of these technologies, right? So getting them across and helping them understand simple ways in which to keep themselves safe, that is always of excitement to me. So that aha moment when I change somebody's mind from this being a technical IT too hard issue to actually it's not that hard and I can do some simple things and make myself in a more secure environment, that is always exciting.
Interesting, very interesting. Okay, my audience ranges. They range from someone who doesn't know anything about the technology to someone who are very, very experienced in that. So it's like a big
Mm.
um, kind of a paradigm, right? So, in simple terms, a layman's term, someone who doesn't know anything about cybersecurity like me, can you please explain what is cybersecurity? Why do we need it?
Mm.
And how do we go about it? So let's start with what it is.
Yeah. Look, it's a really good question, right? And what's cybersecurity? Simply putting aside all the tech buzzwords and everything else, cybersecurity is all about making sure that your information and your systems are secure. And they're secure and they're available when you need them. And this can range if you're a corporate or if you're a large organization, it can range from the services you provide your customers, your systems internally. We have an element of utilities and critical infrastructure, right? Anything that you provide as a service. But as a consumer, it's or just lay people, it's how do you keep yourself safe online? How do you ensure that the information that is critical for your benefit, also your financials, are safe and secure? That's what cybersecurity is about, is helping you stay safe from attacks that happen via the internet and via technology. That, in a nutshell, it is. It's about people, it's about businesses, and finally and lastly, it's about technology. So that's my simple view of how are you safe, secure.
Mhm.
Are people who are looking at your information the right people who need to have access? Is your information correct and is not tampered with? So think
Mhm.
about your health records. You
Yeah.
want them not to be tampered with. So if you rely on a medical report that your doctor uses to treat you, and that's in your doctor's system somewhere, that better be accurate, right? There is need for integrity of that information beyond just who can see it. And also, is it available in a timely fashion? When you need it, is it there?
Mhm.
If you are an e-commerce company, if you run a business that is primarily online and you're selling products online, and one of the days in the US, which is a Black Friday, which I know in Australia too is becoming a thing, where it's a key day, a lot of discounts. That's massive for e-commerce companies. Imagine if that's the day you get taken down by a cyber attack, denial of service, and your website's offline. That's the day you lost a lot of business. So these are the basic, simple things. Forgetting all the hype and buzzwords, these are the day-to-day impacts to people, and which is why we need to care about it.
Okay, very interesting. Guys, to the audience, there are lots of people who are watching this. I request you to kindly like this episode and also, please, I've got questions. If you've got a question, put that in the comment section and I'll take that question. Cybersecurity is something that has not been much talked about. So let's take this opportunity to ask questions to Chirag and clarify ourselves to understand what it actually means. So please put the question in the comment section and I will take that question for sure. And don't forget to like and share this video. Okay, coming back to my questions, Chirag. Think about cybercrime. Can you give us an example of cybercrime? You gave one example around bringing the website down on a
Yeah.
Black Friday, but any other example that people can relate to and it makes good sense to people?
Yeah, look, I mean, a common one, right? Which is there are lots of examples of cybercrime. So any criminal activity which happens over the internet can potentially be looked at cybercrime, right? So a big one is scams and frauds. That is a massive one where people get tricked into giving away their credentials or their passwords, or they get tricked into giving money away, right? So as an example, what happens in terms of cybercrime is sometimes you get what is called a phishing email. So an email that claims to come from a reputed source but is really malicious in nature and is just spoofed, right? You get that, you click on a link, and suddenly now you have a software installed which claims to be an antivirus software, by the way. It'll claim to say the right things, and it suddenly says, it flashes up on your system. It says, you are hacked, and call this number, and you can unlock your data. And when you call that number, somebody legitimate is on the other line. And this happens all the time, by the way. And it's called a remote access scam. And that person will act like that person is trying to help you. And they will ask you for a good amount of money, by the way, to help you clean up your systems. And essentially, all they are doing is just taking your money, and they will continue to be in your systems because they're the one who infected you in the first place, right? So, cybercrime, which is a remote access scam in this way. There are other types of scams which happen, which is one of them. A common one is called payroll diversion. And what payroll diversion is most of us in many countries now have direct deposits that our salaries get directly deposited into our accounts, right?
Yeah.
What these criminals do is get your credentials via phishing, scams, and all these other ways, which is essentially tricking you into giving your password away, and then logging into your account and changing the direct deposit information to their own account, right?
Yep.
And a lot of people don't look at it on a day-to-day basis, so they will only realize once a paycheck's not into their account, and sometimes that's too late. So these are two real examples. There are lots of them, and most of them tend to be in the scam category. Of there are things called as romance scams, and which
Oh
lure
yeah. I think that was big in Australia as well.
is massive, and that happens on all dating websites, which where somebody reaches out to you, and they typically prey on vulnerable people, right? They typically prey on people who are older, who may have disabilities, who may have lost a partner recently, so are in emotionally not a very good spot, but still are financially okay. And these are the people who prey to their tendencies, right? As they reach out, they suddenly became really close to them, humor them, flatter them, and end of the day claim that they're stuck in some other country or have a big financial difficulty and will ask for money. And they prey on people's emotions. And that's why I always say cybersecurity is ultimately a human game. It's about humans. It's they prey on human emotions to be helpful, to be greedy sometimes, to be empathetic. So I think that's where these are some of the real things we see on a day-to-day basis. So for a normal person, I think the key things you need to think about also is your kids. If you have kids and they are largely online, uh, cybercrime, one of the things we are seeing, and actually this is the more heinous nature of cybercrime, in my view, beyond just financials, is sometimes it gets in the area of exploiting children online, right? There are all these multi-level games with which are people participate in, especially teenagers. They play games and they have different characters in part of the game. Now the character might not necessarily be who they think they are, right? And this is another way where, besides your parent supervision, there's no good way to see what's happening. But this is the one where conversations need to start early. Is the things which we used to teach our kids when we were taught ourselves is not to talk to strangers in real life, right? As kids, the same applies online. Nothing changes. These are still strangers, and that's the cyber crime now, which is the more heinous nature. And just to give you all a sense of, we kind of touched on the safety bit online, but when we come back to just the crime, the financials, the fraud bit, it is expected that this market, the cybercrime market, is going to touch approximately $8 to $10 trillion in the next few years. Think about it, $8 to $10 trillion, and a lot of that is happening now in the nature of ransomware as well. So, for the audience, I know not everybody is necessarily hooked into cyber and technology. Ransomware is one of the biggest challenges which exists currently in the industry. And what ransomware is, simply put, is somebody infects your system, locks all your files, and basically threatens you, pay me or I will delete everything and I will not let you get your system back. Now, it's probably okay if it's your personal laptop and you don't have much going on there. But the impact it had in the US recently, where a company, a Colonial Pipeline, that's a major oil and gas pipeline, by the way. That's a pipeline that services most of the east coast of the US. That was impacted by ransomware. And they had to shut down that pipeline as the first time it happened in the history of that pipeline's whole existence, which over 50 years. It's never been shut down except for the ransomware attack. And the company had to pay north of $4 million as ransom to get stuff back. And these are big organizations servicing over 50 million people. So imagine that. So this is where it's not just some computer thing, it's actually impacting oil and gas availability. It impacts water plants. And this is ransomware is one of the biggest things. So while, and I know we'll look at some of the different areas, while that's a big challenge, right? I don't like to scare people. My thing is, it actually, if you think about it, the problem is big, but the solution is still fairly straightforward. The solution is most ransomware attacks start with a phishing email. And what does phishing email exploit? Humans. So if humans are aware, they are smart, that's your number one technique. Number two is just make your passwords how you get access to systems is sound, right? So most of us, if you ever end up using your same password in multiple websites, stop doing that. That's the number one thing you can stop doing. Use good passwords. Use a password manager, which we can share links to. And password managers don't need you to be a technical expert, by the way. It's just like an app. It's pretty straightforward. You need to patch your systems. So when you see a little sign coming up on your Windows on your phone saying update my system, please update them and back up critical information. If it's something you cannot really live without, don't keep it on just your machines, keep it somewhere else. Basic things like this goes a long way in stopping ransomware. So while the
Yeah,
problem is big, the solution is not that hard.
I totally agree with you. I think an important thing is that I think all these phones these days, whether it's a Samsung or an iPhone, they've got these app password managers. I think it's a good way to protect your passwords in the first place. I think that's one thing to do. The other thing that comes to mind is, and we're talking about use cases and where cybercrime has happened. There are two cases that comes to mind. One is that I was called by someone, a girl, and she said to me that your computer has been hacked and I will be able to help you. So I'm a bit aware person, I would think. And I said, okay, fine. And she said, well, I'm calling you because we're getting this constant message that you've been hacked. And so she told me, sit in front of your computer, type a command prompt, go to command prompt and type some message. And is this the message you're seeing on the screen? Which is actually consistent with all the computers. That's the same message you will have in all the computers, right? So she told me that this is the message you're seeing on the screen and you should be getting that. Are you? Oh, your system is hacked now. So in someone's mind who doesn't know much about it would think, oh shit, my system is hacked. So how can you help me? And the moment I said, how can you help me? He said, I'm just giving you access, one of these screen share
Mhm.
platform, and I'll be able to, do it for you because you won't be able to do it. At that time, I said, hang on a minute, I know a bit about it. Thank you very much. Put your phone down. Can I talk to your boss? And suddenly she disappeared. She hung the phone on me. So that was one. I think that is quite common. And guys, all the guys who are watching this, if you've had some of those experiences, please put that in the comment section. Possibly we can take that, and that will be a good awareness spreading exercise
Yeah.
for people to know what kind of things are happening. Another one that happened to me was someone calling me saying that ATO has found out that you've been no, ATO has some money to pay you. So
Mhm.
can you please call us back? So it was an automated message, and of course I didn't call back. But then later, after some days, they called me and they were calling in Hindi, knowing that they would figure out from my name that I would speak Hindi, and they said, "Sir, you're now ATO has to pay you money back. I can get you that, and I'm calling from ATO. ATO never calls." So I said, ATO never calls. How are you calling from ATO? And that guy disappeared. So these are the kind of things that we are seeing. So guys, if you've got any of such stories, please put that in the comment section. Chirag, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, the ATO scams are big, and Australia right now is a tax season, right? Which is why you see them, and they will typically peak around holiday season as well. So I think that's another time. And due to COVID, by the way, I think COVID after that happened, that was a big spike in scams. And now what vaccination scams are another thing which happens, right? Is
Okay.
fake portals giving people false hope of a quick vaccine and the like. So the end of the day, these scams will evolve, right? And we have to just think back to the source. Why do people do this? And let's just understand this. And this has always been my idea: is why is cybercrime on the rise? Cybercrime is on the rise is because it's the quickest way to make money. End of the day, that's the most problematic issue, right? Is the quickest way to make most money in the current world we live in. We have cameras everywhere. Always give that analogy. We have cameras everywhere. Physical security measures are now much more stringent. It's harder to commit physical crime than it used to because the likelihood of you being caught is much higher. Whereas in cybercrime, you could be sitting across halfway across the world and still be able to make a lot of money just with these things and simple things, right? Giving somebody a scam call or sending a fake email, and there you go, you make a lot of money. And the problem with this is, and this is now the more geopolitical landscape, is attribution and prosecution of cybercrime is really hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that is the biggest challenge, which is why you see so many players in the game right now. And I think that's what we need to recognize, that we can control certain things and we can control a lot, but there needs to be something which also happens at a government level, and which is what is now happening in terms of a diplomatic conversation in the US, Russia, Australia, is how will we deal with this issue? What are the rules of engagement in this type of a game? Because it's clearly not a vector that's going away anytime soon. If anything, it's going to become stronger.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. Guys, if you've got a story to tell, please put that in the comment section. I'll take that. If you've got a question for Chirag, please take that, and I'll please ask that question in the comment section and I'll take that. There are so many people watching. At the moment, I see there are around about 50 people watching, but I don't see people asking questions. Don't comment. Everyone is impacted by this. If you don't understand cybersecurity, please ask. We are here to answer your questions. I've got Chirag specifically for you guys so that he can answer all the questions that are going in your mind. And if you've had a story like I did, like Chirag got one, then please share so more and more people can learn from it. Okay, Chirag, very quickly get to how do we make people, of course, one way is to talk about these stories, but how do we make it real for people? How do people actually, so people who are not yet touched by cybersecurity, they will be at one point in time,
Yeah.
I'm sure, as we're getting into the technology and the way we are moving. But how do we make people to feel it, to actually understand what cybersecurity is all about? Because that is very, very important. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think it starts with, and I think we touched upon that, is making it personal and real to people, right? Is let's stop talking just about corporate information. While that's very important, it's if you want to make it real to people, make it personal. If something impacts us personally, we start to pay more attention to it. That's just how our human mind is, right? Is we want to look at ourselves first. So I think what connection we need to make, and for people to understand, is your safety is also equally important, right? And that's what cybersecurity is also about, is ensuring the safety of you and your family online. And what I mean by that is, the bad practices which used to happen previously in the playgrounds, where, think about bullying, think about other things, those have migrated online, right? So that's it's your the kids are being bullied all the time now, where if you came home from school, you were in a safe environment. Now that's no longer true, because you can still online, you still have all these connections, somebody can still tag you. So people need to understand that. And what gets posted on social media channels, or what gets posted on, say, these free apps and these free quizzes, that is not really personal, right? It's public. Somebody can use that information, and people are using information. If you post pictures of kids online, nothing stops a bad actor from taking those pictures and using AI in the bad way, not the good way as intended to be, to create deep fakes. We see that happening with celebrities all the time. So there is the personal safety element, which is connected to cybersecurity, which is really, really important. It's not something different. Now, we talk about all this, right? But I think what that's why I came back to my previous topic, is we need to give people a sense of control. Cybersecurity is not hard. That's an illusion that is very, very hard. It's not hard. For most people, like people who are just lay people and they don't really work in this industry, it's very straightforward, right? Be smart about things like emails and scams. If they seem too good to be true, ignore them. Make sure your systems are updated. Make sure you manage your passwords. That's one advice I give you. Don't use the same password over in time. Be careful about things you install on your laptops and your phones, right? Just be aware. And don't forget, your phone, your smartphone, is much more a computer than its actual phone, right? So if you keep these basic things in mind, it's not that hard. And that's what I bring to people is, if you think about it from your personal safety perspective, there are some things we need to do as part of parenting, being a good family person, which you should be doing, having conversations early with your kids, having conversations with your with older people in your family, right? Who may not be as familiar, having a conversation with them and just making sure they're aware of two or three simple things, not to scare them, just to make them aware. So I think when we start doing these things, we make it real to people, give them a sense of control, give them three or four things they can do, and not get caught up with all the hype. And I think that's where you start seeing a material shift in attitudes to it, and an importance that this is not just some techie issue which will go away. It's something that impacts us as people.
As you said, guys, as Chirag mentioned, I'm now doing this. I'm sharing this episode with my family members because this is important. They need to know, sitting anywhere in the world, that they're open to and they're exposed to cybersecurity, and they should be watching as well. So please share this with your mums, dads, everyone who's got access to a phone, which is almost everyone. And they should be watching this episode, because this is what is so important. I didn't understand it was so huge around the world. So please, please, please share this episode with as many people. Of course, your family members as well, because even your kids, even your father, your mother, everyone should be watching this, because this advice is gold. It can help you in whichever way or form, so that you can really understand how cybersecurity can impact you, and cybersecurity is impacting you on a given day. So give me a second, and I'm doing that now. So please, please, please share this video with your family members. And I'm saying that along with that, that this is important. Please come and join us, because if you've got a question, think about it, because this is what it is all about. So please, please, please share this video and invite your family members to ask, and share their stories if they've had any story, because more and more people share their stories, better it is. Okay, let me get to my question in the meantime, Chirag. Chirag, COVID, and you mentioned COVID as well. What are the lessons that we need to learn from COVID, and how do we succeed in the post-COVID scenario where everything is gone online?
Yeah.
Talk about
Well, I
that.
mean, I think that's so. COVID fundamentally, it did a lot of terrible things, right? I mean, the impact has had the negative impact in terms of health and people's lives, and the economy cannot be underestimated. That was bad. But if I can pick about one silver lining in this thing is it enhanced digital transformation across the board. People who had never heard of video conferencing technologies were on Zoom and other different tools, and being able to talk to your family and friends, right? So people got comfortable with using virtual meetings and remote technologies. I think that was a positive in a way, but that also became an attack vector. So it became an attack vector where now people realized, and I mean the bad actors essentially, they realized that people are now at their homes, right? So they don't have the classic corporate network security which used to exist in some points. Security moved so quickly from being part of your corporate networks to moving to your endpoints, essentially to your laptops, right? So working from home arrangements. And that is where you started to see a lot of scams rise. You started to see some attacks in those areas, which is around remote technologies and virtual technologies. So that is something which, while we can solve via technical controls, and there is a lot of progress being made there, right? Is expanding your protections to your devices, not just within an office somewhere, but anywhere, anytime. It also realized that the importance of the user education and the human aspect is much, much higher now than it was, because ultimately that's your primary defense against the changing threat landscape. The other thing which has happened as a result of COVID is, you see, at least in Australia, you see everywhere you need to check in, right? You have a QR code, you check in for contact tracing and those purposes. So people become familiar with those apps and those scanners. While that is amazing and is really good, people need to be aware of the risks with that, right? Is sometimes when you scan something, just be sure that it's a legitimate thing you're scanning, and where you enter your credentials post that scanning of a barcode, you just make sure that it's to the right place. So I know the government's investing heavily, at least in Australia. You see Service New South Wales has done some amazing work in New South Wales, so it automatically all hooks up. But the world we will move into will also have vaccination passports, right? That's where we're going, where international travel will be contingent upon that. And those ones, integrity of those will be so important. And I think those are the type of challenges we need to start thinking about. The other thing which happened because of COVID is, which was anyways happening, but it just got much faster, is because now you have digital transformation quickly. You rely a lot and now I'm speaking to organizations too, not just individual people. A lot of organizations started relying more and more on their partners and third parties,
Mhm.
right, to get their things done, be it in the cloud computing area, be it in the supply chain, be it software as a service. So, your file storage and other type of common services, it started becoming in the SaaS world, right, in the outsourced third party world. And now that is an area which is actively being targeted by the bad actors. So the big incidents we've seen in this world recently with regards to third parties has been SolarWinds. If you haven't looked up, I encourage you to look up the SolarWinds scam. It is creating a massive diplomatic row as well. That in Kaseya. KASEYA. I mean, just look up, just Google these terms up, and you will see it's a massive point of contention. But the point is that now the bad actors are targeting managed service providers. So they're targeting big organizations who have lots of customers. Instead of targeting each customer individually, they're going to these one organization who services them. So that's a trend we will need to be very alert of. So if I, sitting on my side, am a consumer of all these technologies, I need to think about the risk that needs to be managed there. But if I'm a managed service provider who services all of them, I need to equally keep that in mind as the downstream impact of my services. So you're seeing a lot of different things change. Some of it have just become faster because of COVID, and some of them are rather unique to what happened in the aftermath of COVID.
Mhm. So that reminds me, and correct me if I'm wrong. Now that there are a lot of QR code being shown around, how do we test the authenticity of that QR code? Because that exposes us. Someone could have that QR code in front of their shop, and when you access this QR code, it could actually also create a kind of a mirroring your phone or something like that. Is that possible as well?
Yeah, look, I mean, the biggest risk which happens now is when you scan a Q, like which right now is the data entry risk, right? Is when you scan something, you see something pop up on your screen, and what do you do to interact with that? So the first thing is just firstly, just be very careful as to why that entity needs your information, right? If it's your name, fine. You were checking into a restaurant for a COVID safe. That's a legitimate use case. I get it. But if you see a random QR code somewhere and they just ask you to scan it, just be very careful when you scan that. What is it asking you to do after that? The scanning itself is one thing, but what does it ask after that? Is it asking you to click on something, buy something, enter some very personal sensitive information which you are like, why does this entity need that? And ask that. Don't be afraid to ask that question to whoever is asking you to scan it. Is why do you need this information? Is this what you were asking for? Because sometimes they might not be aware that that's been compromised, right? I mean, this is the new world. We are all learning these new things. So I still bring it back to the human vigilance. The good thing is all this does not, in most cases, unless it's very sophisticated, does not happen automatically, right? There is that interaction of humans required even after scanning a QR code. So it's a very interesting developing area of security which I'm paying close attention to. But so far, my advice is your best defense is your vigilance, and don't blindly just enter your details where you see just something pop up on the screen.
Interesting. Guys, if you've got any of the COVID stories where during the COVID time, you were asked to do something which was a bit scary, please let us know, because that will help others learn from what happened to you. So please, please, please put that in the comment section. If you've got any COVID story or anything you've learned during the COVID environment, and we don't know everything. More we share, the better it is. Share it with as many people as possible. So please put that in the comment section, and I will 100% take it in the comments in the Q&A section, which now is becoming more comments in Q&A section. So please, please, please put that in the comment section. Okay. Next stuff, Chirag. Uh, your book. Let's talk about your book now. 7 Rules to Influence Behavior and Win at Cybersecurity Awareness. First of all, what were the key takeaways? So, guys, this book, um, put that up again. It's called 7 Rules to Influence Behavior and Win at Cybersecurity Awareness. So, this book is available on Amazon, by the way. Where you
Yeah,
know.
Amazon and all major online stores.
Okay, good stuff. So, tell us about what were the key takeaways from the book.
Yeah, look, I mean, the key takeaways from book, right, is essentially some lot of things we have covered ground already. Now, the key takeaways from the book is around the human factor and the importance of the human factor. So we talked about it a fair bit here. Is most cyber incidents, personal, professional, happen because of the human factor. That is us. We doing something. It did not automatically happen, right? That's number one. The number two takeaway was how we talk about security matters. So we touched upon that too. Is not scaring people, is giving them a sense of control. And what I've done as part of my book writing here is not to make this some super technical book, right? This book was meant that anybody in the world should be able to pick it up, read it, and understand it, right? So that was the idea. Now, the lessons which have been applied is how do you get human beings to think differently? How do you get them to do things which are slightly different, slightly friction inducing in some ways, right? You're asking somebody to log on to something, use a password manager or whatever, which they're not doing today. How would you go about that? And this is where for the book I've incorporated lessons that some disciplines have solved outside of technology. Neuroscience, public health policy, those disciplines have actually done something. Economics, they've actually gone about and changed human behavior. So those are lessons which I talk about in the book. And one of the ones which is also talked about is the positive peer pressure, and you're starting to see that come in effect now. I see that in New South Wales as where I started seeing in trains before the lockdowns that 9 out of 10 people on this train have purchased a ticket, and that is very consistent with a study which happened in the UK, where they were trying to get people to pay taxes on time, and they tried the traditional route of sending a letter and saying you haven't paid your tax on time. Didn't really do much. What actually helped and moved the dial by as much as 15% was just inclusion of these couple of sentences. 9 out of 10 people pay your taxes on time. You are one of the few who hasn't paid that yet. And that became even more effective when it was localized. You are one of the few people in your hometown, name the hometown, who hasn't paid taxes on time. Just that, it's not rocket science, right? Introducing that increased the compliance by close to 15%. Now that sounds like a small number, but in the size of the British economy, think about the billions of dollars, right? So it is small things that matter, and how we talk, how we encourage people to do the right thing is important. So that's kind of taken away in the book in terms of the actionable things you can do. And I'll share a bunch of case studies where what you could do and make it real. The other thing which in the book I talk about, and this is again more from all of us to understand, is cybersecurity ultimately is also for organizations which are investing heavily in this area, as I think they should. Ultimately, it's about managing risk. Why does cybersecurity exist? It's to manage risk to businesses. It's not to stop things, it's just to give a more informed view. So it's just the book talks about how do you go about creating your cyber programs and cyber awareness efforts that support your enterprise cyber risk, and which allows more confidence from people investing in it, be it the boards, be it the executives. And so I think that's the other angle to the book. And then more importantly, talks about the role that it plays there, where we rely on collaboration, right? It's not just you as an individual or you as an organization. This is a collective problem for all of us. So how do we work closely with partners within organizations and external to organizations, with government, with the industry, to solve this problem better? So I think it gives you some key actionable takeaways. The other thing it does is gives you some common sense steps of protecting yourself online, right? I talked about passwords. I also talked about just the emails being a really important vector, things to do on your phone, just being smart about when you are on public Wi-Fi, what you should and should not be doing. Ideally, you should not be doing your banking transactions there. The other thing to be mindful of, and we started with the HTTPS joke earlier, so I'll just kind of touch upon that. It is important. HTTPS, which is a good thing. The challenge now we see is just because it's HTTPS does not mean it's not a scam site.
Yep.
Be a scam site and still have HTTPS. So I think that's an evolution from an attacker perspective. So I think some of the things which we need to think about. So anyway, the book is looks at all the different areas, is intended to be used by organizations and people to get a better understanding of the topic. And then it covers these key things: is influencing user behavior, getting us to be smarter, and then connecting back to the investments and the reporting which we should do to get confidence that we are adequately protecting ourselves.
Good stuff. I want to come back to a use case now, which has been quite interesting. It's for the kids because we are all our kids are very precious, and as there is lots of cybercrime happening around kids, I want to spend more time on that if
Yeah.
that's fine by you. So there are a few things we're seeing. One is cyberbullying that is happening at the moment, where people are forcing kids to do certain kind of behavior online. How do you think we should protect our kids doing that? And also, when there are lots of websites and apps that have come up which inherently train the child to go and buy for certain dollars, which are like not real dollars. They're like stuff. And I heard a story that was in India, I think. Someone spent 5 lakhs or 6 lakhs overnight on App Store, and the mom didn't know about it. And it's like, how do you stop these things?
Yeah, it is a tricky one. Look, I mean, there are some simple things you can do, and then some things that are not as straightforward, right? I mean, so for firstly, I'll just suggest that if you haven't, there is a website by the government in Australia. It's called E-Safety Commissioner.
Okay.
So E-Safety Commissioner is a website I highly recommend people to visit because it has specific tools and resources for keeping kids online safe and keeping elders online. It's a really useful resource, by the way. It's free, so it's really good. Uh, Now, in terms of actionable things, right? I think there's some basics you can do is implementing some where it allows some content filtering, right? So making sure that your kids don't have unfettered access to the internet. I think that starts with one, and there are ways you could do that, both at an application level, but also at your network level. And there are lots of resources, like I mentioned. So check out the eSafety Gov website, which has more details. The other thing which I suggest is just getting kids and having that conversation with them early, right? It's just making them aware, because look, they are kids, and they will do things which we all have, right? Which may not 100% be the best thing to do because you just don't know better. And that's where parents need to be parents and have those conversations transparently. And look, there needs to be some rules and disciplines put in. I think that's a big part of parenting. Is devices should be largely used in open areas. They should not be used beyond a certain time, especially for certain age groups in their own rooms. And I say that because a lot of the challenges we have talked about bullying, but there is also the other exploitation bit, right? Is what is sadly the sexting bit, and those areas where you have revenge. It's called revenge porn, a bad name to use because it's neither revenge is porn. It's just pretty abysmal behavior, really. But that is using intimate pictures of your former partners and getting back at them. So just getting people aware of the risks that are, and having open and honest conversations with the kids, just like you would have in 20 years ago, where you would ask them to be safe. This is a different conversation. So that is why I said you need to be equipped first to have those conversations. So those are some of the things we need to start doing. The other one is around, the we talked about the apps, and which is where, look, fundamentally, be it the Google Play accounts or be it the Apple accounts, wherever they're getting their apps from and paying. So those type of apps, like as parents, there needs to be a clear view of those accounts and the financial transactions happening on them, right? It shouldn't be a surprise. It really shouldn't be, because ultimately the kid doesn't have a credit card. Hopefully, it's your card and it's your account details. Keep a track on them. I think the job of parenting has become harder in that sense, right? Is it doesn't just stop at a playground; it comes at home. It doesn't just stop with a stranger leaving. It actually can come inside your house too. And there are some real eye-opening stories that come about, and some of that is just around how people were groomed. I actually met this lady who spoke at the same conference I did, and she was one of those people, and she openly shares a story now around how she was exploited and kidnapped by an attacker when she was on her home and just chatting with that person, thinking is somebody her age. And this person called her somewhere privately to meet, and just basically kidnapped her. And then she went through a harrowing journey. Luckily, she was rescued, and now she shares her stories. But look, the idea is not to scare people, right? The idea is to have these conversations. So there is nothing scary that happens later. There's some things you can do via technology, and when you are equipped, you can have those chats. So hence, I would suggest it's a multivariate problem, but it starts with some simple steps. And having some ground rules is critically important. And you really need to establish that early. Your kids cannot have unfettered access to the internet. Just cannot.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that advice, guys. Very, very important. Please share this video with and who've just joined, people who've just joined this episode now. There's a lot of content that was covered previous to this, which is relevant to all, people of all ages, whether they're elders, whether they are young kids. Please have a look at the video from the beginning. There is a lot of interesting stuff that is being talked about, and also share it with your elders, your kids. Everyone should hear from what Chirag is talking about, because there are some very interesting use cases that he's discussed. And if you've got a use case that you've seen or you've heard or you were involved, please put that in the comment section. Even if it was someone else, please put that in so that people can learn from others' experiences and they don't go through the same challenges and issues. So please put that in the comment section, and don't forget to like and share this video with as many people as possible. Very important. This is very interesting and very important part of the technology that we need to listen and take care of. Okay. Now let's go to a bit of the business side of things. Um, what is important for businesses to consider when building a cybersecurity strategy? Have
Mhm.
you, and you do that all the time, Chirag, please explain to those large corporates what they should be thinking, or, what maybe they've missed something. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's basically when you think about it from a business perspective, any good cybersecurity strategy should have a few different things it considers, right? The first thing it needs to consider is the nature of the business you are involved with and the cyber risks that are relevant to that business. So I'll give you an example. At a high level, the cyber risks are quite similar across the industries, right? So one of them is you can have an external attacker, malicious in nature, trying to compromise your systems, right? Via phishing or exploiting system vulnerabilities. That's number one. Number two, you could have an internal actor who is your internal employee, a trusted employee who has become malicious and is attacking you to commit fraud or just to prove a point or is just disgruntled, right? So you have the internal malicious attacker. Then you have your scenario where it's a denial of service, where somebody's just taken your systems down. Your data has not been stolen, but your systems are now down, right? That denial of service. Then there is accidental data loss as a business, where somebody innocently sends a spreadsheet full of customer sensitive information to the wrong email address, right? That's an accidental data loss. And there is the third party risk, which is the risk introduced to your environment by your vendors. People who you trust to keep your information safe have had an incident, right? At a high level, these five apply quite universally. Now, as a business, you need to think about which of these are more material to me because not everything is material to you, right? Like I said, an e-commerce company, denial of service is massive. But if you are a company which doesn't have a big online presence, real-time presence, but largely relies on backdoor operations, well, denial of service might be lower to you, but the risk of a malicious insider might be much higher to you, right? So you start with what is cyber risk for you. That's number one. Number two, you need to understand what are the compliance requirements that are unique to your industry. So if financial services in Australia is heavily regulated, so a lot of requirements come in via that mechanism, be it incident notification to regulators in certain times, be it testing your own controls, so there are expectations which come via regulators. So see which regulatory environment you operate in. Those two. And then what is important is your business. Is the nature of your business going to change anytime soon? Are you suddenly going to move from not heavily online to becoming fully online? You're going direct to consumer now. That's your strategy. That fundamentally changes things for you from a cyber perspective. That needs to be back of your mind. And then again, it is an important idea that what is your current technology landscape, right? Are you relying heavily on legacy technology or are you in the cloud and can leverage more automation? So those factor in. So these are the different things you should think about in the strategy. But we talked about cyber risks, and everything I talk about is in the context of cyber risk for organizations because that's where it should be. The things that support it now, thankfully, is we as an industry globally, we have some good set of practices we've agreed upon that they are largely, more right than wrong. Let's put it that way. And there are some really good frameworks people can leverage, such as NIST cybersecurity framework, ISO 27001. There are common standards you can use. Pick any framework you think is useful for you and then tailor it, right? So if you think as an organization the most important thing for you is ransomware, right? That's the biggest risk you identified based on the nature of your business. The control library, the frameworks I talked about, give you a sense of controls you can pick. And then you need to do work to see what is key controls for you. So for ransomware, like I said, it could be your email filtering, it could be your backups and resiliency testing, it could be your phishing awareness needs to be much higher. It could be detection and response capabilities, right? So you pick those, and those become more important to you. So not everything is important to you at the same time, right? You need to crawl before you walk, right? So you need to pick up the key controls that are most material to you. And in Australia, there are some technical controls which you can use. It's called Essential 8, which gives you a good sense of some things to start with, some basic hygiene controls, if I can call them that, and then you can improve it. So those controls, when you marry them with risk, you now have a way of tracking it. So as controls improve, the risk should reduce, right? The big thing I always advise to corporates and to organizations is this is not an IT problem. So you need to engage with your finance teams, with your business teams to quantify the losses. Challenge your security people to give you a sense of what does it really mean to me in terms of financials? How does it impact my business? Don't just let them give you, years of penetration test report or a patching report. That's not the conversation, right? That's a lower level conversation which needs to happen, But at the business level, at the corporate level, at the strategy level, that's not where you should be focused on. You should be focused on the outcomes and the impacts to your day-to-day operations and your strategy. So I think when you think about it holistically in that way, you can make it real. And as an organization, you can put yourself in good stead. A big thing which I advise is ask your IT teams, and you as a business owner ultimately realize that if you are a board member, a senior leader in the organization, you are accountable for cybersecurity. You should set the tone for cybersecurity. It's everybody's problem, right? So ask the question, what are the key assets of my organization? What
Mhm.
are the 15 or 20 critical applications, be it HR, be it finance, be it your customer facing? If those were to impact it, it materially impacts me. Just focus there to initially, right? Don't try to boil the ocean with everything and spend money, in different areas. Just focus on your key assets, key risks, key controls. If you can start with that, you are way ahead of a lot of organizations. And end of the day, right? Our job in cybersecurity and any executive looking at it, job is to ensure that you are making it as hard as possible for the attackers. Incidents will happen, right? You can't prevent and stop everything, but you can make it as hard as possible because typically they'll move on to somebody else, right?
Mhm.
And you need to test your incident response. That's another thing I say. If you are a senior leader and not just an IT person, and if you're a senior IT person even, make sure you go through what is called as at least a tabletop exercise. Hopefully more than that, but a tabletop exercise. Try to test these scenarios. If a ransomware incident to happen, who would you call? How would you start? What's your stance? Where's your legal team's position on? Have these conversations early, because that's what matters. It's not a technology issue.
Good stuff. Thank you. Let me get to the future. Where is this all going? What do you see in next five? Well, I'll keep it short actually, 2 to 5 years. Well,
Yeah.
because COVID has actually fast forwarded so many things. How do you see cybersecurity operating in next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be, and to your point, right? It's things are moving so fast. I think the key trends you will start to see is you will start to see more international rules of engagement around cybersecurity, right? I mean, you will start to see what is acceptable, what is not. Similar to what we have today in the physical war landscape, right? The physical security landscape. Is some things are just not acceptable. You'll start to see some international rules of engagement because they have to happen. You are seeing too many diplomatic issues now come out as a result, and look, an organization, no matter how big it is, cannot fight a nation, right, online. So I think it's important that it's those things will start to firm up. The other thing which I feel we'll start to see more and more is something which plays in your ballpark, Shailendra, is in the artificial intelligence machine learning space, where you are seeing a radical, capability uplift in many ways of cyber tooling, right? Because you have data that can detect things. But on the other side, you will also see, and you're already starting to see the bad actors becoming really smart and using it against the cyber tooling, right? So getting people educated in that area, the importance of training data, the importance of feedbacks that a machine automatically provides is so much important. So I think that could fundamentally change things. And deep fakes, we talked about that. Look, a
Mhm.
lot of attacks are now happening because of phishing emails. Imagine when is somebody's face on there and somebody talking to you and you cannot decide if that person is legitimate or not. I mean, that's a different world. So those you will require a higher level of human intelligence, but technology will help us. It will help detect some of these things too. So you will see a change in that area. The other thing which I believe will happen is you, as organizations move more and more online and rely on public cloud providers, you will start to see a shrinking, in my view, of like on you're already seeing that of on-premise, people homegrown systems. They'll be leveraging more and more public and private clouds, and that's where you will start to see a change in mindset. Automation will increase, but reliance on third parties will increase as well, and people will need to find better ways to monitor their third parties than some contract or some questionnaire which gets sent out. You will need some more real-time tracking. And then the other thing which I think about is Internet of Things, right? Is devices that essentially function without an on-off functionality of sorts. They sense the environment and they action on that. Think of your smart your smart devices in your home, or even your smart watches and things. They are Internet of Things devices in a way, right? Awareness of those is going to become really important because those are internet connected devices. People forget that. And they have the same vulnerabilities your laptops might. How do you keep them up to date? How do you get them secure? So you'll see a lot of changes happen in that area. And most importantly, you will see massive investments. You're starting to see that across governments to improve critical infrastructure. as critical infrastructure. We talked about the oil and gas pipeline. We've talked about water plants. There are other critical infrastructure that relies on it. So you'll start to see operational technology and cybersecurity being looked at more closely there. It's not just an IT thing; it's also an OT thing, and ultimately a business thing. So I think these are the key trends I see, which can have a material impact on what cybersecurity look like. And skill sets will evolve. You
Oh,
already see
yeah.
a lot of people moving into cybersecurity, but the skills which the future cybersecurity professional will have will not just be technical. It will be the ability to help the business and speak that language. So that's why I encourage people, if you are aspiring a career in cybersecurity, think about it from that perspective. It's not just technical skills.
No, and to your point, I think it is important for people to start thinking as an individual and how will it impact me as an individual before I get into that particular stream of work. So, looking at a career, I need to think like a customer. So, if it impacts me, then how can I avoid that? How can I make sure that that doesn't happen to me? I think that thought process needs to go through in people's mind as well, because as we discussed about all these use cases where people are being targeted, and some are really really dangerous. I'm I'm, I'm so lost of words, because the elder population is really 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 vulnerable. The elder and the young population, really young population, is really vulnerable to the cybersecurity attacks and the cyber crimes. And I think that needs to be addressed. And so there is a lot of education that needs to go through that place. And I keep on going back to that, and I'm trying to get this whole conversation away from the technicalities of it. But it is important to educate people at all the levels to
Yeah.
understand the importance of cybersecurity.
I completely agree. And look, I think it's interesting you mentioned that, right? I mean, the you look at any credible report, and a lot of reports happen on this. Most people who are victims and end up losing most money to cybercrime are older people. That's just how it is. And we talked about the situations why that might be, right? Life circumstances, more disposable income, less familiarity with technology, all of those factors. And this is one where in the book there is, I've used a study out of the UK, and really it's about that older demographic. How you educate them is different, right? You don't rely on scaring them. It does not work with those people. You can't just scare them. You need to give them an incentive, and make them understand in different ways on the importance of it. So I think that's where our tone around cyber, and which is why you might have heard me talking about this the whole time here. I have stayed away from fear. I don't want to scare people. I want to give them a sense of control and give them 4 or 5 things they can actually start doing today to improve their own personal lives securely.
Hmm. Very interesting. Guys, if you've got a use case which you thought was a cybercrime and you were part of it or you've heard about it, please share that in the comment section. I will take that in just a minute. Apart from that, if you've got a question for Chirag, this is your time. Please put that in the comment section. I'll take the question. It is important because this is something very, very important as we go into the whole digital world, the digital transformation. Everything is digitized. I want you to think about it and ask a question if you've got any for Chirag, and I'll take that very, very soon. Okay, coming back to my question. Now let's get to a positive side of things, Chirag. Um, just can you bring to life a use case where cybersecurity was able to save the day, where things, and I'm putting you on the spot at the moment, and I know where we saw things were happening, things were going pear shaped, but when because of cybersecurity, we were able to intervene and stop that accident to happen. Because we always talk about these bad stories. Uh, how do you have you got such kind of a story which you can share with the audience?
Oh, look, it's all the time. It's not just one off, right? I mean, it's all the time when cybersecurity and the teams actually stop bad things from happening. The common one is in the fraud area, right? So here's the thing: we all talk about phishing emails, right? The the cyber teams end up stopping 80 to 90% of spam coming your way. So that's every day. So imagine like the scams happening now with the 10% floating in. Imagine if all over that opened, right? So that's one example of where cybersecurity is actually stopping things from coming in your inboxes in the first place, right? The tools, the people, the technology. The other practical example is in the fraud space, right? Is in the space of not just scams, but if an anomalous transaction happens, So, for example, if your account has been compromised, right, like somebody stole your password, and suddenly, you are able to, you get an alert sometimes from your bank. I'm not sure if any of you have seen that, your audience have seen that, but sometimes your bank tells you and calls you, there's a hold on your card. Uh, hey, we saw some anomalous activity happen. Is it still you? Because it's not your pattern, right? How are those patterns established? It's fraud teams, the cyber teams who play a role in getting the anomalous activities. Is this person has logged in from Australia, Sydney right now, and in 5 minutes has suddenly logged in from India? How did that happen? So obviously, you see some of those things, right? And those are the ones which get caught behind the scenes. So things which will never make the news, but most of the work happens in the background, where good good cyber work typically should never make news, right? It's just how it is. It's the boring stuff is the stuff that happens in the background. The other thing which you see stop, and this is an example where denial of service attacks. Now, one thing we didn't touch upon, which I think is relevant in the positive sense also, is why is cybercrime increasing again? Is because it's so easy. You can go online and with $50 and a laptop get a service essentially, which you can use, like a service we use anything, right, like a Dropbox or something we use for good things. You can get a similar service where you can launch attacks with just that service. You don't need to be that smart about launching it. You just need to have some money, and sometimes not a lot of money either, to launch attacks, right? So you see that. So the number of attacks have increased because of that factor, is how easy it is. It's called ransomware as a service, denial of service as a service. All of these things are as services now. But the good cyber practices, and when you have a good cyber program, you stop denial of service attacks. You see, when you see malicious traffic coming in, you see suddenly somebody trying to click 50 things, right? It's an action which is not typical. If a website's expecting 100 clicks and is suddenly getting 100,000, there are tools and people behind the scenes who are stopping that, who stop that IP address from clicking. I think those are things where you never see them, and those are practical examples where you can get to enjoy your favorite show or get to enjoy your shopping experience because somebody has been doing these things. So these are the positive things that cybersecurity does. The other thing is really important is the regulations, right? So regulations are put in for a reason, is to protect people, is to protect communities, and ensure that ultimately your societies function, right? That's the positive part of what cybersecurity does. It allows you to meet regulations, which means you're being a good corporate citizen by protecting your customer information, by giving them and managing their trust. By, if you're a superannuation company, ensuring that people who trusted you with their life savings, you're able to protect it, and have a sustainable banking system or a sustainable critical infrastructure system. So all these are enabling things. These are enabling human aspirations. And most importantly, the biggest thing which I believe cybersecurity does, it gives you trust. Trust that when you do things online, commerce, entertainment, working with your kids doing your homework or their homeschooling, there's something in the background which has designed a secure system, and there are people and tools that are ensuring a trusted, protected environment. That gives you so much more confidence that, what, my kid's doing homeschooling or is working right now and largely is safe, with some of the things we talked about. So I think those are the positive aspirational things that really we to do. Because fundamentally, people use these phones, they use their laptops for aspirational things. They want to work, they want to do something. It's for the happy things, and that's where cybersecurity enables you.
Good, interesting. Now I've got a story. There is a good story always, and I've got a good story as well. This was 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I was standing at the Coles and I was about to shop. No, I'd come out from the shop, and the shop was my regular weekly shop of around about $150. And the moment I came out, I got a message from CBA saying, "Is this your real transaction?" Now, I was surprised because you don't log into your bank account all the time, right? It was a simple card swipe, and I just come out. And when I looked at that, and I was like surprised. Why is CBA asking me? My wife was with me, and I had told her, you know what? See how intelligent they've become. They're just trying to test me whether it was me or not. So I replied, yes, it's me. Then something triggered in my mind. So let me look at my account. So I checked my credit card, and I had $8,000
Mm,
spent
mm,
in another part of Sydney at the same time while I was doing my shopping here in the Northwest.
mm,
How that was amazing. My account suddenly had $8,000 gone. And then I started calling the bank, and I said, "Well, I'm standing here in Stanhope, in Norwest, and you telling me about I've taken something out in the in the city. What's going on?" So they said to me that someone has bought 25, what was it, cash cards,
Hmm. Yeah.
gift cards at a Kmart in the city, and they knew that the threshold of us finding out was $500. So each of those cards were under $500, and when we saw them 20 of those gone, we realized that there is a problem, and so we sent you a message.
Yeah.
And that's how it saved me. But it was all
Yeah.
insured, so that saved me $8,000. But these are the kind of issues and stories that you see, guys. If you've got a story, a success story, or a positive story, or a negative story, put that in the comment section, and I'll just take them. What do you think, Chirag, about this one?
How look, it's a what you just described is a very common scenario, which is where it's good that you were alerted, right? At the same time, uh, the gift card business is a tricky one because the thing is it can't be it is not as traceable, right? And it's a very common way of the scams happening. So no, look, I think and generally when somebody is asking you for I've seen like scams where people are asking people to be paid in gift cards. Can we get this? And it's like, just don't, like, just take a step back and think, why is that acceptable? So it's really about hiding. It's hiding your transactions, and gift cards are a way where that happens. So now, look, it's the story you described is sadly a story which is common. But as we go in this cashless society, essentially where we are headed, right? It's even more important than ever for us to have these tools in the background that at least checks things. But from time to time, things will happen without our knowledge, and that's where the industry overall, not just cybersecurity, but financial services and other areas, need to do things to compensate people back, right? If you've done everything properly, and if something were to happen to your finances, I think that's the one you should be made good on. But then it gets back to the idea of, please keep looking at the statements, right? I know people who've gone months without looking at the financial statement because everything is on autopilot, right? Like everything gets paid automatically, but they've gone for months without checking their bank statements. So I think that's a problem. So it's just some good discipline that needs to come in along with that.
No, and because everything is online, you earlier you used to get at least a paper
Yeah.
statement, so that you could go through it and say, "Well, this doesn't look nice. This doesn't look right. This doesn't look right." But now you don't even have that. How many times do you go and open your statement
Yeah.
online? Almost never. So yeah, I think that's some of the hygiene factor that needs to come into our lives as well.
And the good thing about banking, right? Where a lot of banks are now pushing people to do two-factor authentication, right? Where you have a code that gets you sent to your phone, not just a password. I suggest every service you use online enable multi-factor authentication. Your LinkedIn, your Facebook, I think they all allow you to do multi-factor authentication. So you should be doing that because it's a very common way. Because passwords, no matter how good they are, they can be stolen. If you provided your password somewhere and you use the same password, which you should not be, but if you did that, if one website was compromised, they can try on the other ones, right? So having multi-factor authentication is really, really useful. So while
Hmm.
banking does a good job and actually has stopped a lot of bad behavior through that mechanism, we can use the same thing for other online services as well.
Hmm. Good stuff. Let me get to the audience Q&A. But before that, guys, whosoever is watching this, if you've got a question, put that in the comment section. I already have so many questions to go through, but if you've got a question, put that in. I will take that question. If you've got a story to share, please share. I will take that as well because it is important for us to share our story so that people learn from it. This is important. And having said that, in the end, I would ask one more question to Chirag, which is around the advice he would like to give to the elders and to the kids. So please stay around for that as well. Very, very quickly, let me get to the audience Q&A. If you've got a question, if you've got a story, put that in the comment section. I will take this. This is your time. We will take those questions. And also, please don't forget to like and share this episode with as many people as possible. Here we come with the audience Q&A. Brilliant. Let's go to the audience Q&A. Let's start with the first question or the comment, whatever comes first. Okay. Aruna Patam says, "Hi Shailendra, Aruna from Sydney." So this is when we asked, guys, tell us where you're dialing in from. Um, Next comment on LinkedIn from Suprabhat Das. He says, amazing. Looking forward to it, Shailendra and Chirag. Good stuff. Again, a comment from a LinkedIn user. I don't know why the name didn't come through. Says, a great session. Kushal Shah says, a superb session. Hi, Kushal. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. Sanket Nirmal says, great session. Thank you, Sanket. Nidhi Jaiswal says, amazing examples by Chirag, great session. Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi. Another LinkedIn user says, great session. Um, let's get to um, a comment from Sandy. Says, very important. Knowledge is so important. Guys, we're trying to do exactly that. Okay, next question. Next comment from Aruna, or a question. Yes, I had someone try to scam me on ATO stating I haven't filed taxes for last few years, which at that point I did not yet submit for 2 years. So they could even figure that out. How would that happen, Chirag?
I'm just reading the comment. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, right? Where it's it's a one where sometimes they just play the field a little bit, right? So I'm always dubious of I have gotten like on scam calls sometimes where you haven't done it and actually have done it, and sometimes it just might be a matter of timing. So it's unlikely, it's possible but unlikely that they actually knew your exact situation. Now, anytime something like this happens, right, what I suggest is some common sense steps you should take is one, just make sure you reset your key passwords. And I say that if you're using a password manager, it becomes easier. But I just say that because there is a small chance where your account could have been compromised, right? Where they actually got, because that's how it gets in. It's not all rocket science, right? Unless ATO itself was breached, which is highly unlikely and would have made a bigger news, and you would have probably got a notification. It is likely your account was compromised. And in this case, without knowing all the details, I think they play the field. They say the commonly known things that you haven't, and they just hope that a lot of people have not had for a few years, and they just try their luck in that way. But anytime I see something suspicious like this pop up as a prudent measure, I just reset my passwords. I take a look at my bank accounts and just some common financials to see something is not amiss there. But I pretty much leave it at there. And look, if you do feel, you are always free to call up ATO and just notify them, right, that you've gotten an email like this or a message like this. There is also Report Cyber. So in Australia, at least, if you go, on cyber.gov, there is Report Cyber where you can report things like this, which are scam attempts. There is also Scam Watch, where you can report. And I highly encourage you to report when you see things like that, right? Because that can help authorities crack down on a common theme here. Because if somebody's sending you something or it's likely that this person has sent it to 50 other people, right? So which is where by reporting it proactively, you can help the community. So I encourage you to check out Scam Watch or go on cyber.gov and report it that way. So I think those are the steps you can take personally to protect yourself, just to be extra cautious, but then just help the community.
I also think that was just they were trying their luck in this case,
Yeah.
but sometimes it works. Aruna says, I was asked to pay thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
immediately transferred, otherwise I'll be arrested. And
That's a
that's
classic
interesting.
scam one.
So that's normal stuff. ATU never calls, by the way.
Yeah,
Um, we need to take that as a thumb rule. And then she says, I realized it is fishy and put the phone down and did not pick when they tried calling, and they stopped after a while. So yeah, that happens. That
it's
happens.
really
So
smart, Aruna. No, that's really
yeah,
good.
that was
It's
good,
actually a
Aruna.
common story a lot of people has faced, by the way. I've
Mm,
gotten those calls myself, those scam calls from time to time.
good stuff. Sandy says, please tell about points of actions. And I think I'll park this question. Thank you for asking this question, Sandy. What I will do is I'll park this question because I want this as a specific point in the end, so that we clarify what should the elders be doing, what should the people like us be doing, and what should the kids be doing as point of action. So just let park this question. But thank you for asking this question. Um, Next comment is thanks on point. Please keep on sharing. Yep, thank you very much. Um, okay, then let's go to the next one again from Sandy. Sandy saying in all open platform, people always insisted and interested sharing important dates, etc. I don't get what he meant, by this. But
Hmm.
Sandy, if, I couldn't understand the question. Chirag, if you did, um,
I I have to say I do not. But if Sandy wants to, I appreciate Sandy you commenting. I really appreciate it. But if you want to just ask that again, if you don't mind, I don't
that'll be
understand
great. Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The next comment is from Radha Shilindra, of course, my daughter, and she says, "Hi to
Hello.
everyone. Good stuff. Hi, Radha. How are you?" And then there is a comment saying, "Nice session. Can you please mention the book name in chat?" Of course, you can do that. And Chirag, I would ask you to put the name in this in the comment section in a minute
Yep.
after the show, so that people can. And if you can also provide the link to the
Yep.
book, so that
Of
people
course.
can get access to the book directly if it is an Amazon book, and
Yep.
take it from there. And that's and so these were the questions. I think there was one more question which I saw, which didn't come through for some reason. And it said, and I'll read it for you. It's from Praneet Pasbola, and he says, "Hey Shilendra, great to catch the stream live. Question to Chirag: any views on cybersecurity with respect to upcoming latest technologies like IoT, blockchain, and what best practices could we implement in our daily lives?" Interesting.
Yeah. Do you want me to take that?
Yes, please. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
look, I think it's now again different technologies, right? So we need to break down emerging technologies by what they are. I think we touched upon IoTs earlier. Look, I think the challenge with IoTs is there needs to be, from a software manufacturing perspective, some of these things need to be designed more securely in the first instance, right? But things which I suggest for like consumer grade IoTs and like, there's some basics you can do is change the vendor default password, number one, right? That is the first thing you should do. Is not just anything that comes in will have if it's internet connected, it will have a default password, which is a very easy one, which anybody can look up online. So you should change that. That's in your control. The other thing which I would do is only give it the permission it needs, right? If it's in a software format, other formats, just don't give it access to everything. Just control the access that your smart device can have. And finally, as I said, as we update our computers, I acknowledge it's harder for some of these other smaller devices, but keep an eye out, right? Keep an eye out and see if there is a patch available for them from time to time. I don't think you need to do this every single day, but keep an eye out. And if you see something in the news, keep yourself aware. Well, just upgrade that, right? So just do that as a thing. Some, if you are relying on some of the smart cameras and the like to for whatever good reasons, to keep an eye on the your small kids or your pets or whatever, know that that can be recorded, right? So just password protected, and when that does not need to be there, take it offline, right? So things that's got in the smart devices area. When it comes to the more the bigger things like blockchain, look, I almost think it's I started seeing the use of blockchain first when it got interlinked with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? But blockchain does so much more than that. And I'm sure Shailendra, you can jump into some of these areas as well. But the thing I always suggest is, blockchain is relies on the idea that collusion attack, right? So there's some things which come in design as an end consumer. It's kind of transparent to you, but as an organization you need to design them in a way that the integrity of transactions, while immutable, also mean that they cannot be colluded, and you can't have a collusion attack where you can essentially compromise the integrity of the blockchain, because that's what it's about, right? It's a ledger of transactions in ways, and that's where the integrity is so important. But how you can protect it, and this is where the cyber angle comes in, is you need to design it and think of it as the same way you would think other systems, right? Where the access to the blockchain is so important. Who has access to it? Who are using it? What are the primary use cases? And how do you build a technology platform, the underlying infrastructure, which can actually be updated and patched, right? And the most important thing is detection and monitoring. So, are the transaction and activities expected? Are you able to see the logs and monitor them, and be able to respond to any anomalous activities? And do you have a capability to do that? Have you tested it? Have you tested the basic use cases? So those are the things which apply universally to a construct. But then, so each emerging technology has some nuance to it, right? But you will see some common trends emerge. Machine learning, a big one in machine learning is also around managing the training data, and from time to time ensuring that your machine learning algorithms are functioning as intended. Like the machine should learn is fundamentally different. At the same time, if it deviates too much with a clean data set, there could be a potential problem, right? So test that. And then the feedback mechanisms which machine learning learns. So there are some machine learning powered cyber tools which sometimes in their errors and feedback give a lot of information away. So it can be spoofed, right? That feedback can be changed and the input can be changed. So I mean, it's technical, and that's where the response. Some of this is highly technical and depending on the emerging technologies. But what do you do as people, as end users of these technologies? Like I said, there's some things you can control, right? Some things which I keep harping on it because it's so important. Your access, access, access. It starts with your access. It starts with knowing what's happening, and thirdly, it starts with keeping your systems and devices up to date. Do these basics, and you are already far out than a lot of like far out in maturity than a lot of other people.
Good stuff. So that was it. So those were the questions we had, and thank you, Chirag, for taking those questions. Now, in the end, I would like to ask you one thing, which is, what is your basic advice to elders, to people like us, and then the kids? Possibly, we should focus on elders and kids,
Yeah.
because at least we have a good idea of what we should be doing. But if you would like to do a kind of a advice to all these guys, that'd be great.
Yeah, look, I mean, the advice to, I think the advice to elders is right. It's that we should not be scared of technology. It's here to stay, and we should be comfortable using it. And there are some things you can do to completely be aware of it. One is just like we talked about all the scams, right? Be aware that a lot of these scams target you,
Mhm.
and they will prey on your fears and your desires, right? So anytime you see somebody reaching out to you with anything to do with money, be extra careful. Even if it is somebody pretending to be your kids or your kids' friends or somebody along those lines, anytime anybody's asking for money, pick up the phone and talk to that person directly and see if it is that person. So awareness starts there. If you are if you are on a dating app, or looking to find a partner, just be careful. The romance scams target you, right? So I suggest, and Scam Watch and other websites which we can provide in the links later will give you some good resources on the basic scams to be aware of. We talked about remote access scams. These scams target you in the first instance because they know that, like I said, there are reasons why they do that. So that's first, being aware. The second thing is, uh, just at the very least, if you can do something, is don't share your passwords and try to keep strong passwords. When we say strong passwords, right, you don't have to make it very complicated. You can actually keep it simple and just really long. Your favorite song, for an example, right? Just put a few lyrics to your favorite song, and that becomes a long password. If you're a Johnny Cash fan, I fell into a ring of fire, I went down, 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 flames went up higher. Even if you start writing a bunch of this, it's a long password, something you probably never forget. And it's a passphrase, and it's actually much stronger than these, 7-character passwords which you have to write down because you can't remember them. So ideally, I suggest, and if you are, everyone can take this advice, but if you're an older person or an elderly person, get used to password managers. Just look them up. They're not very hard. They're really not very hard. And if you think that you worry that all your passwords are with one thing, that's fine. If you want to just keep that password written down somewhere, keep it in your wallet. I know it's not ideal, but hey, at least it's better than doing something otherwise, right? It's sticking it somewhere where the whole world can see it. So basic things like that, where I don't suggest you ever write on your password, but if you worry, keep it in your wallet or keep it somewhere where nobody else can access. So that's for the elders. Some advice which cuts across the chain, but to elders again, because they are more liable for financial fraud, please keep an eye on your bank statements. That's something you should absolutely do. And put a transaction limit on what can be transacted out of your bank accounts, right? Call up your bank, and your banks are more than willing to help you. Have a conversation with your banks and see what you can do to protect your account. Be it daily transaction limits, so certain transactions can't happen without your knowledge and without explicit sign off. So keep an eye on that. And like I mentioned, two-factor authentication. If it's all too hard, it's really, just if you can use a phone, you can use two-factor authentication. It's that simple. You write a password, you get something which comes to your phone, you enter that code, right? It's not much more complicated than that. So these are the things which I suggest you do, because your biggest threat is a financial fraud angle, and they will exploit all different means to get there. Now, bringing it down to a different category, to the kids. Look, my advice to kids is, uh, anything and everything you put on the internet or send to somebody via a private chat, bear in mind at some point that could become public. Do you want that to happen, is the question you need to ask yourself. And I ask that because it's not just you think it's your friend who you sent it to, but what if your friend's account is compromised? They may not even be doing anything malicious, but their account's compromised, and now all your private information is out in the public. So be careful of who you share with. When you're playing multi-role role playing games online, in this, which is a lot of good games have come about. Just be careful. People you interact with may not be who might you might think they are. So be careful about any financial transactions which we talked about. And at any point, your parents are parents for a reason. Share things with them. Talk to them as much as possible when you get approached by strangers online. No matter what they look on a picture, just be very wary of that, because it's very easy to manipulate pictures. And then the devices you are trusted with, make sure you don't share your devices, and please never share your passwords even with your friends. Even if you think that's okay, it's not okay, because you may trust one person, but that could be passed on to somebody else, and without your knowledge a lot of your personal information now is public. And when I mean that, it could be anything, right? It could be your messages, could be your personal images, your parents details for that matter. So just be careful of devices. So it's not to be scared, it's just to be aware. Awareness is our strength here. And the same advice applies to kids as applies to elders, right? It's just, if you are at an age where you are a teen and you have passwords, you should be using password managers. You should be smart about it and updating your devices, and treat your devices like you would treat any physical valuable. It should not be left without your supervision. It should have a lock on it, a passphrase or a character lock, whatever it is. It should have a lock on it. So if you have these basic things in mind, and know that not everybody out there has your best interest at heart, right? It is so important for kids to be, exploitation of kids online happens, and it happens much more than anybody likes. It is actually a really really big problem. So just be aware, and fight against it, and share this message with your friend, right? Help them get aware. So that's my message to kids as well. And all of this applies to us. Look, it's not unique in any way. These are best practices we can be aware of. And be wary of public Wi-Fi, right? I mean, I say this, look, it's a technical attack, but I still talk about it. When you log on to Wi-Fi networks at a cafe, it's okay, but don't use it for very sensitive transactions. I think just some basic things to be aware of. If you can do that, you protect yourself, like I said, to a large degree of attacks.
Good, very interesting. Thank you very much. I wanted to finish off, but I can't because the first time ever I've got a question or a comment on Twitch. So we're
Okay.
live on Twitch as well, and someone on Twitch actually put that comment. Is GZDRE forever? Lately, there has been scams with Zelle and Bank of America where customers are called from a number who caller ID says Bank of America, and they asked customers to transfer money. The bank do not give refunds, and when the scam is pointed out, should we get rid of Zelle? I don't know what Zelle is, by the way. This is very, very America focused. But if you know anything about this, Chirag,
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I won't be able to comment on that because I'm not very familiar with that specific thing. I think my overarching advice is right. I mean, in terms of the refunds and the scams, look, which is where I said that work with your banks early. I think prevention is better than the cure in this instance. Sadly, sometimes I've seen instances where it's hard to recoup money for the banks even, and it depends on many circumstances. So which is where all the preventive steps we talked about, Shailendra, come in here, right? Is having the conversation early. If you flag something really quickly, by the way, a transaction which hasn't still gone to just shows up in the statements, the bank can actually do something about it. So I think it's an area where like I was telling earlier, the industry itself will evolve. It'll help people, but I can't speak to the specific circumstances of the individual we have here.
good, interesting. And finally, Hema says very interesting and informative. Thank you, Hema. Thank you for joining. So that was it, guys. I've got all the questions covered, and I think that was great conversation. And Chirag, thank you very much for your time. I think it was very, very informative, as Hema said, interesting and informative, and that's what I would put it as well. So thank you for your time. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
No, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. And thank you to everybody who watched us and who commented and provided their feedback. I really, really appreciate it. It really makes it all worthwhile. So thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity, Shailendra. It's really
Good
good.
stuff. Thank you very much. And Chirag, thank you for coming on, and thank you very much. Before you go, sorry, I just missed this. Before you go, I always ask people to leave a, a comment for the audience in a sentence, not more than a sentence. So if you wanted people to leave with a sentence or a comment, what would it be?
If I were to leave, I would just say be smart, and that'll keep you safe. And make sure you are not sharing your passwords and have weak passwords. That's the one thing you can start with.
Mhm. And before you go, can you please mention the name of the book again?
Yes, the name of the book is Seven Rules to Influence Behavior and Win at Cybersecurity Awareness. And you can go on Amazon or you can go on my website, chiragjoshi.com, and you can get access to the book through that mechanism as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Shailendra. Thanks all.
Bye now. So, guys, that was Chirag Joshi, a best-selling author in the cybersecurity space. I'm sure you guys enjoyed the conversation. I definitely did. I just had a great time. I think it was a lot of information which is valuable to people in all stages of their life. I'm really, really sure that you guys will share this video with your elders, with your kids, and there are components of the video where everyone has something to learn from. And it is very, very important because cybersecurity touches each one of us, and cyber crimes are just in these days. They're happening around us everywhere. It's touching each one of us. So please, please, please share this video with as many people as possible, your parents, your friends, your family members, your colleagues, so that more and more people learn from the advice that Chirag gave today. It was absolutely critical. I think everyone should learn from what Chirag had to say. So thank you very much for watching this episode. I think it was great, and I'm thankful to all of you. But before you go, please don't forget to like and share this video with everyone. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, please press the follow button. If you're watching this on Twitter, press the follow button and retweet this. If you're watching this on Facebook, please press the like button and share this video with on your wall, and also share it on other groups, so that more people learn from all the advice that was given in this episode. And thank you very much for watching. And I'll come back and speak to you very soon. So take care and bye now. Bye.